Okay, welcome to the deep dive. You sent over this really fascinating stack of sources today. We're diving into these ideas mainly from Naval that have, well, they've got a lot of people talking. It's about building wealth, sure, but also something kind of deeper, how to, genuinely escape that competitive grind and find a path that actually feels fulfilling. So our mission here is to really unpack all of this. We want to pull out the core wisdom, the essential bits, and figure out how you can apply these principles, cut through the noise. What are the key takeaways?
Exactly. And what's great about these sources is they're not just like the highlights from that famous tweet storm. They give you the why, the context behind it all, drawing from longer talks, even ideas that didn't quite make the final cut originally. It's a really comprehensive look.
Right. Not just getting rich, but maybe building a life where wealth is almost a side effect of, who you are.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
All right, let's just jump right in then, because the sources start with something really fundamental. We hear these words all the time: wealth, money, status. What's the actual difference according to this material? What's the key distinction?
Yeah, it's like setting the definitions straight first.
Yeah.
So wealth. Wealth is basically assets, things that earn for you while you sleep. Think businesses, investments, maybe intellectual property, stuff that works for you. Money, that's just the exchange mechanism, right? How we transfer value, pay debts. And status, well, that's just your rank, your position in the social hierarchy.
Okay, simple definitions. But why does that difference matter so much?
Oh, it's huge. Because wealth fundamentally is positive sum. If I build, say, a great piece of software, it doesn't actually stop you from building your own great software. Maybe my work even helps you. We can both create wealth. Ideally, more wealth creation makes things better overall. But status, that's zero sum.
Totally.
For someone to move up the status ladder, someone else, by definition, has to move down.
And you mentioned status games. The sources seem pretty negative about them. They call them old, hierarchical, often involving putting others down, politics, even sports sometimes. Why the strong advice to just stay away?
Yeah, the advice is really clear. Avoid them. Because, well, they change who you are. They make you combative. To win at status games, you often have to be critical, negative, always looking over your shoulder, trying to signal how much better or more virtuous you are, often by attacking someone else. It doesn't actually build anything useful. It just rearranges the pecking order. And frankly, it turns you into kind of an angry person.
Right, constantly fighting.
Exactly. And the sources link this way back, evolutionarily. For hunter-gatherers, status was everything. You couldn't store wealth easily, so your rank determined access to resources, mates, protection. It was survival. But with farming, and especially now, wealth is the main driver of security and, well, prosperity. That old status wiring is still there, though. It's sticky. The sources even point out, when you see some journalists constantly attacking tech founders or the rich, often it's less about real critique and more about playing that status game, gaining points by positioning themselves against an elite.
Interesting. So it can be a trap.
It can be, and it often works against actual wealth creation for everybody.
Okay, so avoid the zero-sum status fights. Focus on positive-sum wealth building. But what about luck? How much of success is just, being lucky? The sources say you need to factor it out, and apparently there are 4 kinds of luck.
Right, yeah, they break it down quite neatly. Type 1 is just blind luck, pure randomness, winning the lottery, basically. You can't plan for that. Type 2 is luck from hustle, just doing a lot, being busy, running around. Something good might happen because you're creating motion, but it's still pretty random.
Okay, so avoid those, or at least don't rely on them.
Exactly. The real focus should be on types 3 and 4. Type 3 luck is about preparation. It's having the skills, the knowledge, the mindset to spot an opportunity when it flies by, an opportunity others might miss. You know the saying, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. That's type 3.
Got it. Being ready.
And type 4 is the deepest. This is where you build such a unique reputation, such a specific skill set, maybe create something so distinct that luck actually finds you. Opportunities are drawn to you because of who you are and what you've built. You become a magnet for a certain kind of luck.
So that connects to those quotes like Sam Altman saying extreme people get extreme results, or Pfeffer's, you can't be normal and expect abnormal returns.
Precisely. If you're just average, doing what everyone else does, you get average results. You're relying on maybe type 2 luck. And the flip side they mention is play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Chasing status, engaging in negativity, that attracts the wrong kind of attention, not type 3 or 4 luck.
Okay, so it's about preparing yourself, becoming uniquely you to attract good fortune.
Yeah.
How? How do you actually do that? What are the skills, the principles?
Okay, yeah, buckle up. This is where it gets very practical, very direct. First, big one. You will not get rich renting out your time. Full stop.
Whoa, okay. That sounds intense. Does that mean quit your job tomorrow? What does that mean practically?
Haha, not necessarily quit tomorrow, but it means your goal needs to shift towards ownership, towards equity. Owning a piece of a business, a product, intellectual property, even real estate. Something that isn't directly tied to the hours you put in. Trading hours for dollars fundamentally limits you. There are only 24 hours in a day. Real wealth comes from owning assets that can scale beyond your personal time.
Right, makes sense. Scaling.
And this ties straight into finding work where your inputs and outputs are highly disconnected. Think about a lumberjack. Their output, how much wood they chop, is pretty much directly tied to their effort and time. Limited leverage, limited range of outcomes.
It's linear.
Exactly. Now think about a software developer or a writer, a creator, us doing this. One great idea, one piece of code, one article, one deep dive like this. It could potentially reach millions. The effort to reach the millionth person isn't much more than reaching the 10th. That massive potential disconnect between input and output that comes from creativity and, crucially, leverage.
Leverage. Okay, yeah, that comes up constantly in these sources. And it's not just financial leverage, like debt, is it?
No, definitely not. Leverage is broader. It's any tool that multiplies your effort. So historically, that meant labor, having people work for you, which is complex, requires leadership, and capital, having money or machines work for you. Powerful, but usually requires existing wealth or convincing others to trust you, which means accountability.
Right. Hard to get sometimes.
But the game changer now, the sources really hammer this home, is permissionless leverage. This is the stuff enabled by code and media, the internet. Think blogs, videos, podcasts, online communities. You can distribute these basically for free at zero marginal cost. And code, software, algorithms. These are like armies of robots that can work 24/7. The sources say vividly, the robots are already here. They're in the data centers. Code is how you command them.
Wow.
And the key is permissionless. You don't need a boss's okay or a bank loan to start writing code or publishing content. You can just do it.
Commanding an army with code, that's quite an image.
Yeah.
So you need leverage, ideally permissionless leverage.
Yeah.
But what do you apply it with? What's the thing you're leveraging?
Good question. That requires specific knowledge. This is maybe one of the most crucial and often misunderstood ideas. Specific knowledge is not stuff you can just be trained for easily in a classroom or a standard corporate training.
Why not?
Because if it can be easily taught, it can be taught to lots of people. Or automated, which makes you replaceable.
Okay, so what is it then?
It's the stuff you find by following your genuine innate curiosity. Your passions. Things you loved figuring out as a kid. Subjects you read about just for fun. Problems you actually enjoy tackling. It's often learned on the job, through apprenticeship, through tinkering, through experience. It's messy. And here's the key test. It feels like play to you, but it looks like hard work to other people.
Ah, okay. Like it's natural for you.
Exactly. Naval uses himself as an example. He wanted to be a scientist, but people noticed he was just naturally good at analyzing businesses, explaining things, selling. Often others see your specific knowledge before you do.
And it's probably not just one skill, right? It's likely a mix.
Absolutely. That's the skill stack idea, which they reference from Scott Adams. It's way easier to be, say, in the top 25% at 3 or 4 different things than to be the absolute #1 best in the world at one super narrow thing. It's the unique combination of your skills found where your curiosities overlap that makes you hard to compete with, makes you like an N of 1. They also touch on building versus selling. Building gets you started, gets recognition, but learning to sell or distribute or scale what you build, that's where the real leverage multiplies over time.
Okay, specific knowledge stack applied with leverage. Got it. What about accountability? That sounds risky.
It is risky. Accountability means taking ownership, putting your name out there publicly. Yeah. You get the credit when things go well, which is great, but you also take the hit, the blame, the criticism when they go wrong. You absolutely need thick skin for this because you will get attacked if you're taking real responsibility.
So why do it?
Because it's how you build credibility. It's how you earn trust. It's how you attract the biggest forms of leverage, especially capital. Think about CEOs. They're paid huge amounts essentially for their judgment under extreme accountability. Someone like Warren Buffett, people trust him with billions, not just because he's smart, but because he has this decades-long track record of sound judgment and taking responsibility publicly with integrity.
Right, that track record is key. Which brings us neatly to judgment itself. How do the sources define that?
Judgment is basically knowing the long-term consequences of your decisions. Simple definition, hard to master. Wisdom, they say, is essentially judgment applied personally. And it's not just pure intellect, it's intellect plus experience, having skin in the game, as Taleb calls it. You need to feel the results of your choices. So the faster you can iterate, make decisions, see outcomes, learn, adjust, the faster you build good judgment.
And emotions get in the way.
Hugely. The sources point out the best investors, the best entrepreneurs, often seem almost unemotional or very calm under pressure. They've trained themselves to separate feelings from the decision-making process. And kind of amusingly, they suggest a quick way to spot bad judgment is just to look at online outrage. Constant outrage often signals poor judgment and very short-term thinking.
Okay, noted. This all sounds like a marathon, not a sprint. How do you keep building these skills, improving judgment, over a whole lifetime?
Yeah, it's definitely a long game. Lifelong learning is non-negotiable. And the foundation, the absolute starting point, according to these sources, reading. The advice is super simple, really practical. Read what you love until you love to read.
So don't force yourself to read, like dense philosophy if you hate it.
Exactly. Start where your curiosity naturally pulls you. Comic books, sci-fi, whatever. Build the habit. Build the love of reading first. Your interest will naturally deepen over time. The goal isn't just collecting facts, it's building a steel frame of understanding. That means going to foundational texts, Adam Smith on economics, Darwin on evolution, Feynman on physics. Understand the first principles, the deep structures, not just surface-level stuff.
Makes sense. Understand the basics deeply.
Right. And the internet makes information abundant now. The scarce resource isn't information, it's the desire to learn, that genuine curiosity. Unfortunately, traditional education sometimes beats that out of us, focusing on compliance instead of exploration.
Are there specific subjects they recommend focusing on?
Yeah, they get quite specific. Microeconomics is a big one. Understanding incentives, scale, network effects, pricing, all that. They're less enthusiastic about macroeconomics, calling a lot of it macro bullshit, often driven by politics. Logic and math are seen as the ultimate foundations for clear thought. And then practical skills. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Basic, but crucial. Persuasion. And computer programming, specifically as applied leverage.
And learning by doing.
Absolutely critical. Doing, iterating, trying things, making small mistakes quickly, that's way faster for learning than just passively watching or listening for hours. Embrace frequent small failures.
Okay, so we have the skills, the learning process.
Yeah.
But there's also a strategic layer, right? A mindset about playing the long game.
Oh, totally crucial. Play long-term games with long-term people. This is where compounding really works its magic. Not just financial compounding, but compounding trust, reputation, relationships. Short-term players are always trying to grab their slice of the existing pie. Long-term players focus on working together to bake a much, much bigger pie over many years.
And choosing who to play those long games with.
Yeah, really important. Look for the trifecta. High intelligence, high energy, and above all, high integrity. Integrity is the deal breaker. A smart, energetic person without integrity, they're just dangerous. They burn you eventually. Look at actions, not just words, signals over noise. And make sure their motivation is internal, intrinsic. You can't drag someone along to the long haul.
And finding your own unique path seems tied to this long game too.
Definitely. The advice is, become the best in the world at what you do. But how? By constantly redefining what you do, narrowing your niche, until you genuinely are the best within that specific intersection. Authenticity isn't just feel-good advice here, it's a core strategy. No one can compete with you on being you. It's about finding that founder product market fit, the overlap between what you're uniquely good at and love, your specific knowledge, what you can actually build, leveraging skills, and what the world genuinely wants or needs. Market. It's complex, it takes time.
So resist the urge to just copy what seems hot or what everyone else is chasing.
Exactly. The sources strongly caution against following the herd in entrepreneurship. Intense competition usually means low margins or that you've missed the real opportunity. It's a balancing act. Be authentically you, leverage your unique stack, but also make sure you're solving a real problem or meeting a real need. Specialize in being you.
Okay. With all this focus on finding your own path, what about all the advice out there? The gurus, the get-rich-quick schemes.
Yeah, be extremely aware. The sources are pretty blunt. If someone's selling you a get-rich system, their real business is usually just selling that system to you.
Right. Their wealth comes from selling the dream.
Precisely. And be cautious about advice from people who got rich really fast through some fluke. They're giving you their winning lottery numbers, essentially. It's specific to them, not a universal principle. The approach should be read widely, listen, absorb ideas, but then filter heavily. Build your own internal model, your own judgment. Reject most advice. And yeah, they specifically call out ignoring professional critics, people who critique but have never actually built anything significant themselves.
Hey, this sounds amazing for founders, creators. But what if you're in a regular job right now? Can you still apply this stuff?
Oh, absolutely. You start where you are. Accountability. Look for the hard problems nobody else wants to touch in your current role. Volunteer to own them. Specific knowledge. Dive deep into a niche area within your company or industry that genuinely interests you. Become the go-to expert, even if it seems small initially. Leverage. Find tools to automate parts of your job. Train your colleagues effectively. Take on projects that give you visibility and impact beyond just your immediate tasks.
So even in a seemingly traditional role?
Yes. Think about roles like apprenticeships, or maybe being a chief of staff. Those often offer super steep learning curves because you see so much, iterate quickly. Avoid roles that are just pure repetitive drudgery with no learning. Even if you're, say, working in a factory or a coffee shop, there are always ways to innovate, optimize, connect differently. Companies want people with that founder mentality who act like owners, and maybe don't obsess over the salary number in your first few jobs. Prioritize learning, gaining accountability, finding leverage. That pays off much more long-term.
Okay, that makes sense. And you mentioned something earlier from the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
About avoiding ruin.
Yes, crucial piece. Avoiding ruin. Nassim Taleb's ideas come up again. Urbodicity. Basically, just because something is survivable on average for a population doesn't mean it's survivable for you as an individual. One bad blow-up can take you out of the game permanently, even if most people recover.
So manage risk carefully.
Very carefully. Don't bet everything, even on a good bet. The Kelly criterion is mentioned as a more mathematical way to think about sizing your bets or risks so that you can survive the inevitable downturns and stay in the game long enough for compounding to work. Survive first.
It really does sound like a long game. Not quick or easy.
Definitely not quick. Immense patience is needed. Life is long, is a phrase they use. It's about consistently applying these layers. Specific knowledge, leverage, judgment, accountability, lifelong learning. Building advantages that compound over time. It's not a simple recipe, but focusing on these elements dramatically increases your odds of, well, getting what you deserve in the long run.
And it's not just about money. Right?
No, and the sources are clear on that too. Health, physical and mental, and strong relationships. These are also earned. They need deliberate effort. And arguably, they bring more peace and fulfillment than money itself. Money's great for solving money problems and for buying freedom. The freedom not to do things you dislike with people you dislike. That's a powerful form of wealth too.
Which kind of brings us full circle back to that core idea you mentioned that ties it all together.
Right. The distillation of all these principles into just two words. Productize yourself.
Productize yourself. Okay, let's break that down based on everything we've discussed.
Well, yourself is the unique part. That's your specific knowledge, your accountability, your authentic skill stack, your judgment, the stuff only you bring. And productize is the scaling part. That's the leverage using code, media, capital, systems to deliver that unique value to many people detached from your own time.
So making money isn't just a skill you learn like using software.
Exactly. Becomes an outcome, a function of who you are, amplified and scaled. Figure out what unique value you represent, then find ways to package and distribute that value widely.
Wow. Okay. We have covered a lot today, from wealth versus status and luck to the nitty-gritty of specific knowledge, leverage, accountability, judgment, playing the long game, and this idea of productizing yourself.
Yeah, and it's crucial to remember, these are principles, not paint-by-numbers instructions. They require real self-reflection, observation of the world, and applying them uniquely to your context. Like the sources say, listen, read, learn, but ultimately you have to think for yourself and make your own calls.
So the big question for everyone listening is, what does this mean for you? Maybe take some time to think. What are those genuine curiosities you have? What feels like play to you? Where could you maybe take on a bit more accountability, even in a small way? Where could you apply leverage? How can you start shifting towards longer-term thinking?
And maybe a final thought to really chew on, building on all this. If real wealth involves assets earning while you sleep, and judgment means understanding long-term effects, what are the non-financial assets you should be consciously building right now? Things like your health, your key relationships, your mental models, your peace of mind, because those also compound, delivering huge dividends in wisdom, fulfillment, and freedom over the coming decades, maybe even more so than money.
That's a powerful place to leave it. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope it gave you some valuable things to think about and maybe even act on.